Welcome to episode 10 of our Election Connection video series. It's our monthly video series, and I am Scott Jarrett.
And I'm Ray Valenzuela. We are your elections directors for Maricopa County. Each month, we have a new episode of Election Connection,
where you, the viewers, can submit questions directly to us.
The questions today's episode came from our March Just the Facts newsletter.
So remember that you can sign up for our newsletter at justthefacts.vote, and that's how you can submit questions to us.
Exactly. Okay, Scott, so you're ready. Actually, the first question is, it's geared towards you, but maybe there's a couple of things. But question is, why must independent voters pick a party for the presidential primary election?
Well, that is a very good question. And it's a good question because every state does their nominating elections a little bit differently. So the terminology that was used was their presidential primary election. There actually isn't such a thing in Arizona. So we have a presidential preference election and we have a August primary election. And those are different. So I'll first start with the August primary election. So the August primary election is a nominating election for the general election, and it's a partisan election. And there are different ballots for each of the different political parties that are participating. So in Arizona, we have, or prior to, in our last elections, and prior to yesterday, we had 3 recognized parties at the state level. So that was the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, and the Libertarian Party. So each one of those parties would have their own separate ballot. Now in Arizona, for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, it's called an open primary. The Libertarian Party is a closed primary. What that means is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party allow independents to participate. However, because we can't have a voter voting both of those ballots, they have to select their ballot, and they have to pick a party in which they want to select. So how that comes on election day is if a voter shows up, or during in-person voting at all, so that's during the 27 days of early voting, or on election day, our poll workers will ask that voter, which ballot would you like to vote? And that the voter would then have the opportunity, they could actually print out a sample ballot of each, so then they can look and make a decision on whether they wanted to vote the Republican ballot or the Democratic ballot. Once they decide, then they can actually spoil those sample ballots. They get an actual ballot, and they can vote that ballot, so they can choose which ballot they wanted to participate. For the presidential preference election, which is an election that happens every 4 years in the month of March in Arizona, and that is the nominating process in Arizona. What the parties have chosen to do and what our state laws allow for is how the president and the candidate and the party selection for president that would be on the November election. President is not on the ballot in the August primary. But because our presidential preference election, this is a nominating for the president, and the party select, they don't have an open primary. So actually independents are not allowed to participate in that election unless they registered with one of those parties. So as with every election in Arizona, that registration deadline is 29 days before the election. So if you are an independent, and we have a presidential preference election coming up about 1 year from now, you can re-register with the party that will be holding that election, and then you would be able to vote in that election. So that's how it happens, or the difference between the two, the August primary and the March presidential preference election. That's how it's handled if you vote in person. But Ray, how would that happen, or how would a voter make their selection during a primary if they were voting through the mail?
Great question, Scott. And obviously, it's similar to if you go in person, you verbally state. Well, for mail, you have to state, but it's just not verbal. There's many ways. Maricopa is famously known for our mail balloting, where we have a large percentage of folks, 2.1 million almost, on our ABLE. So that's one of the ways to actually make that selection. What I mean
you
is,
said ABLE. What's ABLE?
ABLE is our active early voting list, formerly known as PEVO or PEVO, permanent early voting list. So active early voting list is a subscription that as a voter, you can sign up and say, I would like a mail ballot, and I would like it in perpetuity for all elections I'm eligible for. So you don't have to keep making requests. We verify your address, we validate all this. Now, that every election I'm eligible is a key thing for this question. So you are eligible, not eligible for the presidential preference if you're an independent. It's just the current law as it is. So March, you wouldn't be eligible unless you change your party. But for the August primary, where you have other nominating candidates from different parties, if you're unable, you're an independent, we send you a what we call a 90-day card. At 90 days out, we're very famous for our naming of items. So exactly 90 days, this 90-day card goes out, gives you time to pick a party. So if you're a rep, Dem, or Libertarian, as Scott indicated, one of the recognized parties, you don't pick a party. We automatically send you from that ABLE subscription the ballot that's applicable to you. But if you're an independent, you'll get that card. It will tell you there's an election coming up. August is on this day. It's primary. But to participate, do nothing for the general because it is not a partisan. You automatically get that. But for the primary, pick the party you want, Rep or Dem. Again, Libertarians have opted to close. So currently, those are the two recognized parties. The other option to tell us is, let's say you don't want to be on ABLE for whatever reason, but you are going out of town. There is an option to make a one-time online or a one-time request is really what it is. And you can do that online. This then allows you to say, mail me my ballot for this election, or as an independent, yes, mail me my ballot, but not be on ABLE as an example. So through that one-time request, you can call our call center, 602-506-1511. They'll be able to verify your information and schedule you the ballot of your choice for the political party of your choice to nominate from. Or you can go online and self-service at request.maricopa.vote. Again, request.maricopa.vote. We try to plug all of our online resources because it helps you self-service, as I indicate. You can also go to Be Ballot Ready. Again, Be Ballot Ready is our voter dashboard that will also allow you to make a request, but also give you all of the information on file. For example, am I an independent? What is my party on file? Go to Be Ballot Ready, and you can actually see your voter information, see that you're an independent, and at the same time, go ahead and make that request. Last but not least is if you want to, or more information on that, request.maricopa.vote, know that you can go there and make that one-time request, but we also, and I like to plug the fact that we are very voter-centric, you not only can request a regular mail ballot, you can also request accessible ballot. What do I mean by that? A large print, a Braille ballot, or request a special election board to come out to you if you're physically unable to mark the ballot and need assistance or are confined due to illness. We can schedule a bipartisan team to come out there. So lots of ways to get that ballot, but that would be how you would tell us which party ballot you want.
And so that's beballotready.vote.
Yes,
adding that .vote, very important. Also, and Ray just covered, right? And I also covered, you can either tell us in person. So if you go to one of our in-person voting locations, you can request it by returning that 90-day postcard back to us through the mail. You can go online and select online. You can go to beballotready.vote, or you can give us a call through our Star Call Center. So lots of different ways for independents to let us know which ballot.
And one thing that we always get asked, and I forgot we should mention, is by selecting a party doesn't change your party. So as an independent, you can participate in the August primary, select Rep, Dem, and that will not modify your party. You will still maintain your independent status.
Great information.
So Scott, the next question is almost fully in your wheelhouse here. The question is, did the 2022 general election pass the logic and accuracy test?
So the answer, well, we'll give you a short answer, and that is yes. Now, the next question is, what is a logic and accuracy test? So before every election, whether it's one of our statewide or federal elections like the November general or an August primary, or it's a small jurisdictional election like we have coming up in May for the city of Tempe and the town of Carefree, we perform a logic and accuracy test before and after every election. And for those statewide or those elections that have a federal contest on the ballot, the Secretary of State also performs a logic and accuracy test. And the purpose of those logic and accuracy tests is to verify that our tabulation equipment is programmed accurately to tabulate the ballots that will be voted by voters in the upcoming election. So when the Secretary of State performed their logic and accuracy test for the November general election, the most recent one in 2022, they ran over 1,000 different ballots through our tabulators. Now that 1,000 number was a combination of the number of ballots that were run through both our central count tabulators and our vote center tabulators, or what we call our precinct-based tabulators. So between those two is just over 1,000 ballots, and they are testing all those federal contests on the ballot, statewide contests, statewide candidates, statewide propositions, and also those legislative contests. Now, then the onus comes, and based on state statute, is the county needs to do its own logic and accuracy tests on all the different contests on the ballot. So then we end up doing our tests on over 13,000 different ballots. And again, that's a combination of the number of ballots that were run through our central count tabulation equipment, as well as those on-site tabulators that are at the vote centers, our precinct-based tabulators. Now, these tests are not done just with the Secretary of State staff and our staff. We invite the political parties to play a very critical role in this process. So they're observing the entire test. They're actually watching as the ballots are being run through the tabulation equipment, and then they're verifying the accuracy of our tabulation equipment. So it's a very, it's a governed process through state statute that we're following, but it's a very technical process to make sure that tabulation equipment will be able to read that ballot. So the logic and accuracy test is not one of the only processes that we do to ensure the accuracy and reliability of our tabulation equipment. There are many different processes, and one of those processes is our hand count. And fortunately for you, we have Ray Valenzuela here, who is one of the experts in Arizona on the hand count processes. He's trained nearly every election official in the entire state of Arizona on how to do the hand count. He's been doing it here in Maricopa County for a few decades now. So Ray, can you give us any insights on how the hand count process works?
I can, and I appreciate, and I want to segue off the fact that when you talked about political parties being part of the LNA, they are the checks and balances throughout this process. There are several system checks that happen for every election to ensure integrity. And as you mentioned, LNA with political party involvement, the hand count is a post-election process that also utilizes the political parties. It's one of the things where I think it's one of the better things as far as integrity, because it has a human element to it. You don't understand the system check. You don't understand the logic and the accuracy. Well, this is where 100% is done by the political parties. It is a random selection of ballots from a vote center or a polling place for another county, and early ballots where they say that batch, that polling place, that vote center, and the political parties are choosing those. They're also choosing up to 5 offices: president, state legislative, a statewide proposition. And they're saying our folks, a Dem, a rep, live sitting at a table, are going to take that polling place, vote center ballots, and we're going to count for candidate A. Candidate A has 4,332 votes. A Republican says that and does their own tabulation, independent. A Democrat says 4,332. Now show us what the machine said. Machine auditor comes over and says, here's what the machine said, 4,332. This is done, and the hand count is a lot of detail, so I'm giving you the short synopsis just to let you know there are multiple layers of system checks that ensure the integrity. The hand count is one of those, done 100% by political parties. And I can tell you now, for the decades, I'm feeling old, but the decades that I've done it, that we've had, if 0 errors or up to 100,000 where there's one integrity or one in potential questioned thing. But for the most part, it's 100% accuracy validated by the political parties.
And usually when there's an issue that's identified, it would be like a voter intent related issue. And right, so that could be where a voter, how they mark their ballots, and then the boards would potentially look at that and say that they don't necessarily agree with how the adjudicators process that ballot, or the initial board made that same selection, but we've never identified an accuracy issue with the tabulation equipment itself.
Correct.
So I think that wraps up our questions for today. So thank you for tuning in.
And don't forget to submit your questions to Just the Facts newsletter next month, where we'll answer more election questions that matter to you the most. And I do want to throw a plug that you'll see that we directly derive our questions from these newsletters. So please indeed go out there, submit your questions, as many as you can think of for Scott specifically, and then we'll answer those next month. Thank you.
Thank you.